They call it ancient rites, forgotten symbols, and knowledge. But what if the occult isn't what it seems? Across history, from dark ancient practices used all the way back in Egyptian times to underground sectors hidden all around the world, occult practices have blurred the line between spirituality and deception, even being used behind many large corporations. Occultism, now a trending topic in modern times, was deemed illegal numerous times throughout history, being promoted as a way to be free. But is that truly what's in store when you practice these teachings, or is it another distraction from your true connection with God? Some say black magic holds the key to the soul, others warn it chains the soul in the shadow. Thinkers like Manny P. Hall, a master of esoterica, cautioned that if misused, this knowledge leads not to light, but to self-destruction. This is not just mysticism, this is mass manipulation that has led to horrific crimes, secrets, trafficking, lies, distraction, and programming. Occultism is the dark mirror of spiritual truth.
Space Storia, do you read me? We discovered something.
Occultism versus spirituality is the contrast between two very different paths. One seeks hidden power and secret knowledge, while the other seeks truth, inner peace, and connection with God. Occultism often focuses on rituals, symbols, and manipulating unseen forces, sometimes leading to the illusion of control, which is more ego-based. The word occult comes from the Latin occultus, meaning hidden or secret. Some key elements of occultism include esoteric knowledge, which centers around secret teachings believed to be accessible only to a select few. Spiritual practices, some of these rituals include harmful practices, physically and mentally. Ritualistic practices can lead to sacrificing humans, drinking blood, killing animals, self-harm, SRA, and more. Symbolism and ritual. The use of symbols, sigils, and rituals is widespread in occultism. These are thought to represent hidden truths as well as tools for invoking or directing unseen forces.
Take out all the vowels and you'll be left with a string of consonants. Take out the repeated consonants and you'll be left with a string of consonants, whatever. Turn that thing into a little image. Take the D, draw a big D, then you've got a T, draw a T under it. Keep reducing it down until it looks magical. And there are no rules for this thing. Do it until it looks magical. At that point, you now have a sigil. The sigil will work. You can project desire into reality and change reality.
While occultism is linked to practices such as Satanism and witchcraft, its scope is much, much broader than that. It encompasses both spiritual and material pursuits, with a heavy emphasis on the secrecy of the unknown and the hidden wisdom. The hidden wisdom, you hear it a lot behind a lot of these occult groups, where until you get to a certain level through initiations, you're not allowed certain truths because you're not ready for them until you reach these certain levels. When it comes to true spirituality, it's very much more simple than having to go through all these loops and holes of initiation. It's your connection with God. True spirituality is rooted in humility, self-awareness, and aligning with the higher moral, which is based on connection. It's more of a simplification on how to move through life using your self-development, taking the steps to improve your actions, thoughts, and behaviors to lead a more positive, balanced, love, and fulfilling life. True spirituality requires no ritual or sacrifice other than the sacrifice of behaviors and habits that do not serve you. Occultism promises hidden power, ancient rituals, secret symbols, control over unseen forces, but behind the mystery lies illusion and sometimes deception. True spirituality doesn't need shadows. It's not about control, it's about connection. The occult has roots that stretch back thousands of years, even though the word occult became a much more widely used term later on. It's more about these practices that continue to be passed down and also changed throughout history, and different societies used it for different reasons. Occult ideas were recorded as early as the 1800 BCE, back in ancient Egypt between 2000 and 1000 BCE. Hermeticism, attributed to Hermes, is one of the earliest known systems, which was blending magic, alchemy, and spiritual philosophy. The texts, like the Emerald Tablet, are foundational to later occult thoughts. Also, Egyptian priests used esoteric rituals, symbols, and spiritual teachings only passed down to initiates. Even early Christianity and Gnostism in 1st and 3rd century have roots of occultism. The Gnostics' texts contained esoteric interpretations of Christian teachings viewed by the church as heretical. Occult ideas like the inner divine knowledge, gnosis, and hidden truths were central to these teachings. And then in the Renaissance, between the 15th and 17th century, occultism was formalized into systems like the Kabbalah, alchemy, and ceremonial magic. In modern times, there are many various names for the occult, different groups that all have connections to occultism. A name that has been brought up time and time again in recent history is the infamous Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was a well-known English figure in modern occultism, particularly in ceremonial magic. He became notorious for his teachings on Thelemic magic. He created the Thelema religion and his association with ritual practices. He portrayed himself as the prophet, the most wickedest man on the world. Crowley claimed to have access to hidden spiritual knowledge and even claimed to communicate with spiritual beings. These practices continue to get carried into modern times, but it truly is just a distraction from true spirituality. There's no need to be doing a bunch of rituals or anything like that to be able to connect to God, and that's also been shown throughout history. So, did you know at certain points in time throughout the world, occultism was illegal? From medieval witch trials to 20th century bans, governments and churches have fought to erase the occult, not just for power, but because they feared what it could manifest into. In America, it was hunted. In Europe, it was outlawed. And even now, behind the curtain of modern freedom, echoes of suppression remain. Whether it is all superstition or there is something they didn't want us to know, occultism was illegal. Occultism faced legal, social, and religious scrutiny throughout history. For the legality when it comes to occultism, under the First Amendment, freedom of religion generally protected occult beliefs and practices such as astrology, tarot, ritual magic, or Thelema. However, specific activities associated with occultism in America, like fortune telling and psychic services, have sometimes been banned or restricted, regulated under fraud statuses or consumer protection laws, and permitted only with special licenses. The gray areas that they started running into was the rituals. So rituals, sometimes a ritual can be something that's very simple, such as lighting a candle, but for some people a ritual is not about lighting a candle. They can go to very, very high extremes. Occult practices can end up involving animal or human harm, drug use, child endangerment, or can be tied to fraudulent schemes. They become legally actionable, not because they're occult, but because of these specific actions. Back in the 19th and early 20th century, we had anti-fortune telling laws and also witchcraft laws that were, depending on the state, they were allowed to put what laws they felt worked best for their state. So for example, anti-fortune telling laws were widespread, especially in urban areas like New York City, Boston, and Chicago. These laws were typically aimed at preventing fraud or exploitation. Some statuses explicitly named astrology, palmistry, and clairvoyance as illegal. Outside of the US, England, the Soviet Union, and the Nazis also had their own set of rules or laws. So yes, occultism has been illegal throughout history, mainly more in Europe, but there had been laws in and out in the US, and depending on the state, on what can be carried out and what is technically okay for occultists to practice, because obviously some of their practices are not safe and don't even consider the consent of others. So definitely there are legal issues that go into occultism versus true spirituality, where it's just you connecting with God. There should be no need for you to be getting in any types of legal troubles when it comes to your spirituality and just figuring yourself out, being the best you through those actions, thoughts, and behaviors. Occultism, it's not just a belief system, it's a shadow that has haunted history, leading some down paths of darkness and destruction. From the ritualistic murders of narco-satanists in Mexico to the gruesome child killings in Brazil, occult practices have been linked to some of the most chilling crimes committed. Behind these twisted rituals lies a dangerous truth that in the wrong hands, occultism can be used to manipulate, control, and even destroy lives. But how far has occultism truly gone in shaping history's darkest crimes? In Mexico in the 1980s, there was an American-born cult leader and drug trafficker named Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo. He led a group known as Los Narcosatánicos in Matamoros, Mexico. He was blending Paulo rituals with criminal activities. Adolfo's cult performed human sacrifices, believing these rituals would protect their drug operations. The group's crimes came to light in 1989 after the abduction and murder of an American student, Mark Kilroy, whose mutilated body was discovered in a ritualistic killing. Adolfo died by suicide during a police raid in 1989. Another major crime that happened was the satanic murder of 1984 by Richard Casso. In 1984, Richard Casso, a teenager from Long Island, New York, murdered his friend Gary Lars during what was reported as a satanic ritual. Casso claimed to be satanic. The murder, which involved stabbing lawyers multiple times, was said to be a part of a ritualistic sacrifice. This case became a focal point during the Satanic Panic era, where fears in satanic cults and rituals were widespread in the United States. The Satanic Panic era did throw a lot of things off, because then after the whole panic, everybody was like, well, everybody's over panicking, but there really was a occultic issue and still is happening, and it's just like this underlying surface that now is like kind of trying to come up again, and they're trying to label it as a satanic panic, but it's not a satanic panic. There is a lot of occultism happening, not just in America but around the world. Sometimes it's due to just people not having the right access to certain information or advice or friendships to help them understand that what they're doing maybe isn't in their best interest, and their moral compass may need some adjustments, so they're not partaking in these type of ritualistic practices, trying to get closer to the divine, or as one would say, it's really about your just true connection with God, just really being literally again being the best version of yourself, choosing the right path for yourself so you can live that peaceful, loving life that you seek. Across history, spiritual seekers have been warned. The occult is not a path to truth, but a veil that hides it. From ancient texts to modern scholars, the message is clear. Occultism distorts the very core of spirituality. Figures like Saint Augustine, René Guénon, and even the great Manny P. Hall warn that while it promises enlightenment, occultism leads not to the divine understanding, but into illusion and manipulation. But what exactly is it that occult hides, and who stands to lose when the truth is obscured? Several historical texts and authors have claimed that occultism distorts, corrupts, and obscures the truth of spirituality. Three major sources where this theme is explored: the Bible and the early Christian writings. The Bible text often warns against occult practices. Let no one be found among you who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft. Early Christian fathers and examples such as Saint Augustine often argued that occultism mimicked true spiritual power, but ultimately led people away from God. Occult practices are condemned as false or demonic attempts to the access of the divine. René Guénon, a French metaphysician, argued that modern occultism is a degraded shadow of ancient spiritual truths. He believed that many occult movements, especially from the 19th century, like the Theosophy and Spiritism, distorted authentic metaphysical traditions by blending them with materialism, egoism, or theatrics. Occultism is but a caricature of true initiation. It leads to the illusion rather than to the truth. Manny P. Hall. Manny P. Hall was an esoteric scholar and a mystic who studied occult traditions, but he also warned that misuse of occult power could lead people away from genuine spiritual growth. He distinguishes between true esotericism and alignment with the spiritual truth, and black magic, a manipulative occultism, which he saw as spiritual corruption. The occult sciences are the means of self-realization, but when misused, they are the swiftest road to self-destruction. Hall critiques how both religion and science, when devoid of deeper philosophical insight, can lead humanity astray, emphasizing the need for genuine spiritual understanding. In a world of secrets, lies, and occult practices that often cloud the truth, it is easy to be misled. But true spirituality isn't found in rituals or hidden knowledge, it's found in wisdom, self-awareness, and connection to God. The occult promises power, but in reality, it leads to deception and manipulation. True spirituality growth comes from embracing light over darkness, authenticity over illusion. Your spiritual journey starts with clarity, not mystery. Do everything you gotta do to get to where you gotta go, because you are the only one that can save yourself. Sending much love to everybody. If you need any references, I'll link them down in my description below, and I'll talk to you guys real soon. Peace.
Space Storia, do you read me? We discovered something.